Y'all smell that? I think that's the royal family starting to cook. What's up, guys? Uncle Pencil here, and here we want to do a breakdown and review for chapter 145 of Four Knights of the which is known as Family Battle. And when I tell you, please, and man, this is a really good chapter. It's not, like, here's the thing. It's not a chapter that I think I'll go retroactively and be like, oh, this is a top 10, top 15. Some of them chapters you read and you're like, okay, this is one that's going down in the history books regardless. Like, no matter what comes afterwards, this is going to be one for the books, one for the history, one for the details and the domination. This ain't one of those chapters, but in terms of build-up, in terms of hype, in terms of a balance of action and character writing and character work and new design, this chapter's really, really solid. This is Nakaba firing on all cylinders. No weird stuff. Quality character work, quality design work, quality everything. So you know we've got a hefty, defty, breathy, tough selection of things to be discussing. So let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Editing me, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact. Kilbagon. Let me tell you, bro. I still don't get how this cloak works, dog. Look at the eye heights. Look at the eye heights. Look at the eye shapes. Like this does not, like, it's a cool visual. Don't get me wrong. It's kind of like, I can see the aesthetic reason for why it looks like this. Because it'd be kind of weird to have the eyes like like that, and then being different shapes in the cloak. And I guess that would give the design away. But like, Nakaba, now that you've revealed what he actually looks like, now that you've given us their true form, at least presumably, unless this is like a weird kind of lie thing, I don't know. But since you've given us their true form at this point, bro, you can at least adjust the eyes. This does seem weird, especially considering he doesn't actually end up breaking out of the hood later on this chapter. You could just give us the regular design. I get why you keep this design at first, so you can hide the mystery of the dual-headed lizard man thing. But now, Nakaba, fix that bad boy, bro. Don't make no sense. But another thing, I'm still interested, still very, very interested to get the rationalization behind Kilbagon, the proper history behind Kilbagon, and the ties to Arthur and how Arthur really feels about them. If they really, this is gonna sound bad, do they really get full human rights? And I'm not just talking like human rights in general. I'm talking like human rights as in like, oh yeah, you're actually human. Because I feel like Arthur, and maybe this is bad, but I feel like Arthur would not rock with Kilbagon. Like, I know he literally does. He gifted Kilbagon a chaos staff and everything, but I don't know. Because sure, he's not one of the other 5 major races, but at the same time, he's clearly not human. A giant looks more human than Kilbagon does. In most cases, like, quite literally, they're scaled up. A fairy, numerous fairies have looked more human than Kilbagon does. And maybe that's the issue with me. Like, Kilbagon's a human at heart, Pencil Man. You're just focusing on the aesthetics, the external differences. That's why you're incorrect. And to that I say, yeah, you ain't wrong. But like, at the same time, I don't know. I don't fully trust Kilbagon's own dynamic with Arthur. And I think in the same way that Kilbagon ended up feeding Myrtle lies in order to fit his agenda, I'm not saying this on 100% certainty, but I'm also not gonna say it ain't that Arthur's just using Kilbagon because he's convenient and he needs a new Archmage or something of the sort while trying to find someone else to fill the position for Myrtle. If there was a better human appearing sorcerer, I'm confident they would have gotten the job. I know it sounds so bad, but hey, I'm just being honest with y'all. However, let's actually hop right into chapter 145. Fun fact, did you know there's a live reaction that is 28 minutes long to this very chapter over on Patreon for as low as $1 a month? Or you can become a member to the channel right here on the YouTubes for as low as $3 a month. You get things like that live reaction, ad-free variations of all my videos, and early content, and more. So please, go ahead and check that out. But with that being the case, let's see. As we leap to the rest of the world, or at least the fairy world, people, giants and fairies included, are like, what the heck? Whoa, what's all that racket? And we see a fairy say, they're weird guys, and I don't know, they're mixed up in it now. And even another giant's like, well, look here, it's not every day that we get to see the president the first lady and their kids throw hands with a group of strangers. I know he didn't say that, but like think about that in context. I guess it would have to be somewhat different because like I mean, there's some presidents that could have thrown hands, but I'm trying to think like outside of like ancient warrior or war days, I can't imagine many kings or leaders or presidents or whatever. Like I don't think they'd hop off their throne and start like make me in the same way that King and Diane do. So I'm not sure. I'll be completely. I'm not sure about that, but. It'd be like that, would it be like that, especially when it'd be like that. That's what it would be like for us. Just to randomly see insert president here and insert their wife here. Just absolutely body bag. Body bag is some threat. Some external threat to the country. They just hop down from the heavens and just start throwing hands. That is what this is. But let's say, we do get to learn that King... Oh, he isn't all that happy. They may have made a drastic, devious, diabolical error, if you will. Allow me to take a sip and we'll talk about what it is. That sip was scrumptious. But the main thing that King says is, I don't know who you are, but first you break your way into the fairy kingdom. Then you treat my precious son very badly. It'll cost you more than you're ever going to imagine. So King is talking a little bit slowly. He's getting a little bit devious. And I do like this. Once again, King, due to his... I'm not going to say he's like the straight man of the Seven Deadly Sins, but he low-key kind of is. And I'm not just talking like legitimate terms. No, like I think he's like narrative role kind of does play the straight man when you look at it. Because Escanor, whether in nighttime form or daytime form, is extremely eccentric and not necessarily the typical. Bond and Meliodas are obviously not necessarily the typical. They're also very big jokesters. King usually plays a straight man, and thusly he can't really get to show off his like menacing or threatening props or credits outside of like really rare occasions. Like the only time I remember Kings being... not kings, because that would imply all the fairy kings, but the only time I remember King in particular being like particularly feared or scary or anything like that are two. One, well, I guess technically kind of sort of three with full wings, but one was think. When did I see King against Dreyfus all the way back in season 1 where he just low dips Dreyfus and puts Chastity to his neck like, go ahead. No. I want you to try me. What you do? Huh? What you to me? I'm the Fairy King. And even Dreyfus in his head was like, no. You got it. You got it, my G. You got it. So like, Dreyfus is the one that comes to mind, and the other one that primarily comes to mind is where? Why? Gother. When the whole Gother hunt was going down, and King showed up with a really high power level, and Gother was like, whoa, bucko, when did you get those gains? So, those are like the only two times. So I do like that we're finally seeing King fully, properly step into his role as not just general Fairy King, but also like this beacon of intimidation, this raw power, this wall that has warded off Camelot for at least, based on the lack of like, I'm not going to say like, active conflict, but I'd say kind of pretty much active conflict. Based on the lack of active conflict, this is King really diving into that role and justifying like, this is why none of your people invaded my realm. Not just due to an inability to, due to the nature of my very abilities and my designation over the realm and my creator's designation over the realm, but also every single one of you who enters here will fall. You will perish. Go ahead and try me. I do love that King's playing into that role. It's a role that you more commonly associate with like Meliodas and Bond, two characters who are much more like extreme in their reactions and stuff like that, and ultimately cause fear. But King just so calmly stating, there is nothing you can do with that pathetic life of yours in order to repay the suffering you have inflicted upon my family. I will relish in tearing you limb from limb. That's what I love. But we see that Kilbegon is shockingly enough not the least bit phased, as he says, "It seems that's how you put it, Fairy King. However, are you sure you're not talking about how you treat Myrtle?" So, like, I get it's legit just regular gaslight juice, but like making that argument, I don't even know, like, how does that make sense? Like, in the context of the universe, I'm still not exactly sure how that one makes sense in particular, because, like, I don't think King is a bad dad. Shock horror. I don't think he is. I really do not think he is. I think he's fine. If not even, like, a real good dad, considering how many kids he raised over such a short time period, and that most of them outside of the one who was literally forced upon him by the nature of something he could not control, aka the intervention of another fairy. I mean, like, I don't know. I don't really see King being a bad dad, nor do I really see putting full blame on King here. Here's the thing. I can definitely understand one thing above all others. He didn't treat Myrtle that badly. He hid a very important piece of information from him, admittedly. He did, I will admit this, someone brought up a fantastic point in last week's comments. The idea that technically, yeah, King likely knew that Myrtle was definitely going through all the hassle and the doubts and the misconceptions and all that. He definitely did know that. That is one thing he did go through. He didn't insert any sort of mandate or anything. He didn't do anything like that. He raised Myrtle properly as the first prince without telling him he wasn't actually his kid, and he also did not directly inform everyone else to stop questioning Myrtle or just come out clean about it himself. That is something King didn't do. But once again, Diane also didn't do that. She didn't argue for that too. She didn't do all that. So, like, don't get me wrong. King definitely could have handled the situation better. I agree. He's definitely not completely innocent. But I don't think King's a bad dad. Just in the same way that I don't really think that Meliodas could be classified as a bad dad, in spite of all the issues that Tristan has as an individual, with his own worries about his own identity, how he feels about the world and himself in relation to it, how he feels about his darkness powers. I don't think that's Meliodas' fault. I don't think he's a bad dad for that. I don't think Bond's a bad dad because he lost Jericho indirectly and he let Lancelot and Jericho have a really close connection and grow up and trust them. Well, admittedly, that was a bit weird because, Jericho's a bit weird. But once again, Bond didn't know that. I don't think any of these sins have been, like, bad parentified. I think it's a complex situation. And a situation that, honestly, I'm not even sure how you'd handle yourself. Because, like, what do you do? Like, in context, what do? You tell everybody, oh, yeah, BT dubs, changeling, happened to my kid. And we want to step forward? Like, what would you do if you were the guy who did the changeling? Would you step forward and tell the Fairy King, oh yeah, BT dubs, I did it, and not expect to immediately get annihilated? I'd be afraid of that. I feel like I'd be cooked instantaneously if I took the Fairy King's kid. And thusly, I can get why King hit it. I can completely understand why, because if he didn't, I feel like the fallout and issues that would come right after that would be worth way less than just letting it rock. Letting Myrtle believe it, letting everyone else believe it, even if you did know. But once again, that's me, my biases towards King coming out, me defending my boy, because, I love King, and I don't really like the King slander. Leave off my boy, let him breathe. But he did make mistakes. I'll readily admit that, and he didn't handle the situation as well. But I think it is completely disingenuous to say that King did not care about Myrtle. That he treats Myrtle awfully or horribly, or he was like a terrible father. He clearly wasn't. He spent years upon years maintaining this lie, consistently getting him mullen pills, raising him as his own, letting him interact with and co-raise the other kids as a son. So, like, King's not in the wrong here. Kilbegon is, once again, running off that straight chaos gaslight juice, and essentially entirely. I don't think there's really any way we can put King down for this. So, Kilbegon, I don't think you cook him, Bucko. But with that being the case, we see King realize something. Well, not necessarily. King, I guess, once again, I'll admit, because we need to have a plot, he doesn't do it. But King, you talk all that talk, dog. Why didn't you immediately sunflower them? We know you can do multiple spirit spears, King. This isn't a lack of ability, Bucko. We know you can do it. The moment they appeared, you should have immediately started blasting. I'll be completely honest. You should have instantaneously started blasting. No reason not to. Bro, wild out. Like, legit, just straight wild out. There's no reason not to. They're in your realm. They invaded. They broke your laws. And realistically, they're the ones holding your kid hostage. And now, I'm not sure if King understands the whole Chaos Staff scenario, but if Lancelot knew, I'd presume all the Sins know about Chaos Staffs. So you know you need to destroy that. Most likely in order to save your son. Dog. Like, if you didn't just attack, bro, but unfortunately King does not immediately attack, and he watches on as Kilon gives Myrtle a specific command. Myrtle, bring out all of the darkness in your heart. In your gut. And we see Myrtle's like, oh my god! And Diane goes, Myrtle! Once again, Diane, attack! Attack! I get it. We need to have a plot. We need to have a plot. I feel like I've been saying that a lot in regards to this arc in particular. I will admit that. That's something. If I did have to have, like, some minor narrative critique, as much as I love Nagaba's character work, this arc in particular does feel like a lot of like, oh, characters aren't communicating and emotions are being dragged out, and a lot of this arc couldn't be avoided if characters acted even somewhat optimally. Like, not even full optimal. Like, maybe King doesn't need to sunflower them, but like hit them with the first form Spirit Spear, or have the Guardian attack them. Like, it has multiple, like, you could do more. Diane could do more, but we can't have them. It's the same issue you kind of had with the Zeldris in the Demon World, and Meliodas in Leonis, and Elizabeth in Leonis. Mainly that. And I guess technically Gother, but then again, Gother came in and started cooking towards the back half of the little Demon Village arc. So I can't really give Gother too much, but I guess that's the thing. It's always the back half. You can't have the characters who are known to act very, very quickly and decisively act very, very quickly and decisively, because if they do, then there's no plot. Like, I can't even say anything other. No, there's just no plot. Like, if King actually got active the moment he got active, like he was threatening to, like he was talking to, how spooky he was talking, if he was moving half as spooky as he was talking, the scenario would be over. Kilon should likely be one shot. I'm not gonna lie. Kilon, he seems important enough. He seems like a high-level mage, but like, I highly doubt he's as strong as end of series Merlin. I highly doubt he's as strong as mid-series Merlin. I'm talking 7 Deadly Sins. King still outskilled Merlin by the time of the end of the original series. I don't think Kilon that guy. I really do not. So, genuinely, King and Diane could easily end the plot right here. Even Diane. And I say even Diane because I know a lot of people underestimate my Diane, and I don't blame them. I do too. But, as I always forget, she did damage the Supreme Deity. In base, no trolls dance. She threw rocks at the Supreme Deity, and the Supreme Deity felt it. That's impressive. Base Diane, and that's before an 18-year time skip. Before she was a mama. Now she got the mama amp. Like, dog. Both of them could easily solve this plot. But I guess, you know what, here's the thing. I'll give this in regards to this whole little plot issue, and like characters acting suboptimally and stuff like that. I'll give it a pass, because at least we're actively having the characters be a real active part of the arc. Because if there's one thing I'll admit, I'm still disappointed by the Demon World arc. Zeldris does nothing but stand around and basically just be an exposition machine. We don't see him train anybody. We don't see him train Percy. We don't see him train Lance. We don't see him train Tristan. We don't see him train... Well, Gawain was captured, so he can't really train Gawain. We don't see him train any of the other knights. No, he just sits around all day. And, like, talks about the behemoth. And it's like, oh, Percy, I can't do anything. You go do it. It's unfortunate. We don't even really get to see a fight from him. Meliodas is forced to sit around and let a whole bunch of his kingdom get destroyed by things he could one-shot, because obviously the 4 knights are there. So the 4 knights need to take care of it, because this isn't the 7 Deadly Sins story anymore. It's their story. But once again, that leads to sort of out-of-character stuff. At least Nakaba's allowing King and Diane to be actively involved. They aren't just sitting back and just letting the kids, or Percy, well, obviously Percy isn't back yet. They aren't just letting them handle it. They're actively engaging, which is something I will give more credit to than what happened with, like, Mel. Elizabeth, especially. Elizabeth is insult to injury on that one, because she was literally the main character in the original series. Like, I know it's technically Mel, but, like, it's just as much, if not more, Elizabeth's story than it is Mel's story. So, like, her not getting anything, not a single lick of showing, I can understand Zeldris. I can definitely understand Gelda, especially based on how the conditions of that arc are built. But for Elizabeth to not do anything, that's crazy, considering how important she is. So I'll take this. Even if it does feel somewhat out of character based on what I know of King and Diane and how quickly they can act in their raw level of power, I can let it rock. And you can definitely chalk up a lot of this to just worry and confusion and overwhelming emotion. Because we know emotional states matter in regards to your power and ability in similarly sins. And I highly doubt King or Diane are like in the most solid or firm of mental states right now. They're like realizing essentially everything that could have gone wrong in regards to their handling of Myrtle, and every issue or mistake they ever made is now coming back to haunt them explicitly, immediately, heavily, with no bit of recourse or any way to work around it. So I can definitely understand everything. I'm trying to I explained the whole issue, and now I'm trying to rationalize the issue, because I still think this chapter's gas. All that to say, I still think this chapter's gas. And we see that Myrtle begins to ask a question. But once again, that's the unfortunate thing. That's the unfortunate thing. With the last chapter showing us that Myrtle's internal thoughts do not match his external thoughts, unfortunately, this isn't necessarily too much. It's just it's the chaos juice talking. It's something I'll talk about in a bit after I cover this little section. But we see, and Myrtle goes, "Mother, did you truly love me from the bottom of your heart?" And Diane, admittedly, once again, going on the fact that first-time parent, had no parents, poor frame of reference on how to raise a kid. And there aren't I highly doubt there are books like there are now on how to raise kids. Diane says, "Of course I did. Isn't that obvious?" She could have stopped at the first sentence. I will give that. I'll be real. I will give that. She definitely could have stopped at the first sentence. Dog, you did not need to hit him with that. That was a little bit crazy. That was a little bit extra. That was a little bit devious. Diane, you did not have to say, "Isn't that obvious?" That is a little bit demeaning. But once again, we see Myrtle declare, You liar. Father gave La Droga de Yor to Gnossians, not me. I'm sure you're just the same as him, Mother. Well, golly, he's so nasty looking. I'm not keeping that on my screen. The one thing I wanted to talk about, and it's a byproduct of how the narrative kind of needs to operate based on how the characters are established and how we know they would act. So I do admit, this, once again, kind of in the same way that Zeldris couldn't do anything, or Mel couldn't do anything because of the narrative that needs to operate in the way the narrative does. Myrtle can't just be himself here. He has to be under chaos gaslight juice. But man, does this make it less effective. Honestly, you could keep this and have it have its relatively same effect if we didn't get the internal monologue from Myrtle, the heart-reading monologue, and we knew this was genuinely really Myrtle. This is his thoughts, and he's finally given the power to say it. Of course, this is still technically Myrtle's base emotions, just being drastically amplified by chaos, mystical and magical in his brain. But at the same time, it isn't exactly Myrtle. It's Myrtle being controlled and ordered around by Kilbagon. It's an issue. Skip 5 minutes ahead if you don't want spoilers for Marvel's Spider-Man 2. I'm not sure if it's going to be 5 minutes, I highly doubt it, but still, skip a bit ahead. In Marvel's Spider-Man 2, they have the Black Suit storyline. And one of the major issues I have with that game, I may do a review on it, but it's been so long. A new Game Plus came out, and I meant to replay the story, but I just haven't been able to sit down and actually replay it. So it may happen, it may not happen. But if I had one big critique for the story, it's that Black Suit Peter says mean things that real Peter wouldn't say and or were not hinted at. Do I believe he could say some of the mean things he said? Absolutely. But the narrative doesn't really place any of the blame on Peter. It all goes to the symbiote. Peter doesn't necessarily need to reflect on his actions. It's all the suit. The suit did it. The suit did that. The suit did this. The suit did that. And in my opinion, that's one of the weakest ways you can tell a character conflict story. Let the suit have just allowed Peter to loosen his lips a little bit. How he was really feeling. Actually have characters call him out and ask him, dude, is that true? Do you really think I'm getting in the way? Do you really think, are you afraid that I'm better than you? Do you think, do you really want to tell Harry, pop some pills and tell me how you really, do you have that actually be real? And, do, obviously, pre-work before the symbiote, so we can actually get some hints at that. Because that's the thing. Peter's a nice guy before the suit, and he's a nice guy after the suit. The suit just makes him comically evil. It's unfortunate. It feels like none of the things he says in that suit are real. And it's the same thing here. And it's explicitly confirmed here as well. Myrtle isn't Myrtle. This is not, they keep saying his name, but that's not really Myrtle. This is a puppet of chaos, essentially. Meaning everything he says, every attack he does, all the whiplash he does, it's all under the effects of chaos. Myrtle himself doesn't really want to do this. He doesn't want to make his parents sad. And I do think that's good. I just wish this was actual, real, genuine character conflict. Like, he actually did feel some of these things and was going through these emotions and finally felt like he had the platform to verbalize them now that it's all come out. Now that there's no way or no reason to hide it anymore, he now felt like he could properly speak his truth. But at the same time, it's a caveat you gotta make, right? Because he wouldn't do it then. Myrtle, once again, he's been established as too nice of a guy who loves his family too much. So if you're gonna have Myrtle be... If you're gonna have him be this... He's nasty looking. But if you're gonna have him be this... You do need to just turn him into a monster. You do just need to rip all autonomy or free will from him. You can't really have interesting character conflict. Because once you start having interesting character conflict, then it becomes the question of like, oh, well, like, how are we going to deal with this after he's free of the chaos control? Are we going to, like, actually have the characters talk about it? About Myrtle? A, like, at best, tertiary character who we'll probably see maybe, like, once or twice after this arc is concluded. Who isn't actually even really the main child of Cayenne. When we have Nausians already. The main character. Like, obviously, I get why. But I think that is something that I hope is toned down. I hope it's toned down if we ever see scenarios like this again. And it isn't all just chaos juice. It's actually, like, the real character allowing their emotions to properly come out. And not just be gaslit, manipulated, controlled. But we see Myrtle drop, all of you have abandoned me. And he is looking nasty. Bro, what is it? But there are some things here. That I must give credit to. He tore apart Second Form Guardian. Like, he straight tore. These are not Myrtle pieces. This is the claw that was holding Myrtle. And obviously, once again, I think mental distress, confusion, likely distraction, and worry. So I don't think this is like a testament to Myrtle being strong enough to just one-shot the Guardian in any context. Obviously not. But still, the fact that he was able to tear through it at all, Chaos Myrtle's kind of swole. Like, he may just soul the commandment. That's the funny thing. It's just because of how much the original series ends up cliffing, like, the entire back half of the series, any feat ever by any character on post-time skip sins at all means they kind of soul the commandments in the Archangels. Don't sleep on Chaos Myrtle. He's actually swole. But there are some details that I do like about this. One, look at the wings. He's a fairy now. No, admittedly though, those are goddess wings. At least they look more goddess wings than fairy wings by like their shape and their texture, which I think is multi-layered. One, for the fact that Myrtle just isn't a fairy, but he gets the wings, fulfilling his wish in a way. It's kind of the monkey's paw effect, where Kilon said, "Oh yeah, bro, don't worry. King Arthur can grant your wish. You can definitely be a fairy giant hybrid." And yeah, you can see the fairy in him, and also the giant. He's much bigger than any human would be. And of course, that came with monster mouth and snake tongue. But technically, he got what he wanted. He is a fairy giant hybrid. In a way, Myrtle's happy. His wish was granted. But kind of like how everything in life never comes free. There's a bit of exchange there. And the exchange is being a mindless puppet turned against the people you love the most. Which is not necessarily a good trade-off. But we see that both King and Diane scream, "Myrtle! Myrtle!" And Kilbegon drops the order. He drops the bar. Now! And they do the dash, make it go fast, forget about the fame, all they want is the fans. And they vanish. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so the number keeps changing. But the 11 servants of Kilbegon and Kilbegon himself separate. Once again, Nagama, I'll chalk it up to character confusion and distraction and worry, but like, we see what happens here. Kilbegon and his forces split. So that's two directions. And then we see King about to crash out on them as he says, "You can't run from me!" He's about to absolutely annihilate them. But then he notices Myrtle genuinely wiling out and destroying a whole bunch of the Fairy Kingdom and the rest of his Guardian, wildly enough. Once again, he does absolutely annihilate it, so it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy, you know. Obviously, I don't think King's putting all his power into it, but still. Essentially, King's put in a scenario where he needs to take care of three separate problems. He needs to take care of Myrtle, he needs to take care of Kilbegon, he needs to take care of Kilbegon's crew. That's a crazy combination of things. He even says, "Oh, Myrtle, if only he had the ability to split his very powerful and crazy weapon known as the Spirit Spear into multiple pieces. Like, hypothetically, 4 of them." You know what I mean. You know exactly what I mean. This technically shouldn't be a problem. Like, he should be able to wield 3 spears at once. And once again, I'm not sure how powerful these things are, and they should be one-shot, even by a fraction of the Spirit Spear. I'm not sure how powerful Kilon is, but he should be one-shot, whether it be by Sunflower or the regular Spirit Spear or anything like that. I'm not sure how powerful Myrtle is, but, like, sure, he annihilates the Guardian here, which is impressive, very, very impressive, but he should also be a Sunflower victim, or, like, a first form Chastity victim, or like an increased victim. Like, King could handle this problem all on his own, which is why, in retrospect, and I think Nakaba thinks this too, I do think implying and showing that King can split the Spirit Spear into multiple pieces was a mistake. Like a mistake. And I think Nakaba even knows, because if you'll remember, the reason we know that the Spirit Spears get less effective when they split isn't from anything that's ever stated in the narrative. It's from a Q&A that came out afterwards. Each time King splits it, it gets weaker. Nakaba knew he made King a little bit too powerful by giving him 4 Spirit Spheres. And said, let's tone that down. Let's nerf it a little bit. It's why I think at most you see him do 2 by the time of the end of the original series. The time when he's running towards the battlefield against the original Demon and Zeldris, he's only using 1. Because he can only control 1 from long range. Okay. By the time he gets there, he's out of magic. So he's not really able to use multiple spirits. Okay. And then by the time of the Demon King fight, I think at best, if they aren't just sitting in Perfect Cube, I think they're sitting in a Pollen Garden plus Perfect Cube combo. And then King is obviously fighting the Demon King, so that's 2 spears. We never see him split it into 4 again after that initial usage against Mayao, which I think is purposeful. I think Nakaba himself was like, nah. Let's not do that. In the same way how I feel like Nakaba ended up nerfing Bon by getting rid of his immortality and giving him the Kurachus, Nakaba, he thinks about things. He thinks about things in, like, scaling in regards to how the narrative can function. But since he introduced it, he kind of can't get rid of it. But we do see King do some splitting later on in this chapter. So it's not an ability Nakaba's forgotten about, but it's an ability that he's not going to let King use to its full optimal state because, once again, problems would come in. Interesting to see King scaling, though, as we'll get to in a bit, because once again, Myrtle does tear through the entire second form Guardian, and we see that Diane just says, King, let me handle Myrtle. Which is good. Ultimately, I still believe King could just annihilate it all himself, but good. Give Diane something to do. Please! But with it being the case, we see that King says, fine, he's all yours, Diane. And we see that SIXTUS comes up and is like, hey, better hurry, Pops. Those guys are after La Droga de Or. And King's like, no, that's just gonna. They are? What else do you think they'd be after? I mean, I guess, like, maybe just rampant destruction. But, like, what else do you think they'd be after, dude? What else do you have? Like, unless there's another Fountain of Youth in here somewhere that you ain't telling me about, King, slide that. Actually, do not slide that. I do not want to be immortal. But, well, at least not in the way that Bond was immortal. Well, actually, here's the thing. I don't know about. Question for y'all. Would y'all like to be immortal to a certain point? Like, you have a set lifespan, and within that lifespan, you cannot perish. Like, you know you'll perish at, like, 105. Like, the moment your 105th birthday hits, the day after that, you're going to fall. But you're completely either A, indestructible, or B, can regenerate perfectly, just like Bond can, or like Wolverine can, throughout that entire lifespan up to that point. Honestly, I wouldn't mind that. The only reason I wouldn't want immortality is because, you know, the whole loss of humanity type thing. And also, if it's, like, immortality, and I'm still just a regular dude, yeah, the heat death of the universe is going to be quite lonely. But with that being the case, we see that SIXTUS, completely separate from his immortality thing, SIXTUS says, I think their leader wants to lure you away so his minions can take La Droga de Or hidden in your throne. That's a good point. That's interesting. That's very interesting. I do think that King, Bucko, I mean, I guess it's better to store it in the throne than, like, just keep it in a bottle somewhere. So, yeah, having it in the throne does make sense. But I think it was better if it was, like, split apart across the top of the fairy tree. Essentially unable to be gathered or coalesced other than King himself. But no, apparently the bottle itself of La Droga de Or is something that is just storable and he keeps around. But we see that King's like, okay. I happen to be seeing a vision right now. Then, how about I take that cheap bait of theirs? Huh? SIXTUS, I know you don't like it, but can you sweep up the minions? I'll be fine. They need my own voice password to access La Droga de Or. And then SIXTUS is like, okay, Pops. I see what you getting into. I see what you implying. Alright, I'm game. I'll lean with it. I'll rock with it. I'll play your idea, Pops. But listen here, old man. Listen here, old man. Let me let you know something. I may be game, but just to remind you, Dad, you're the core of all this. So don't get too comfortable now. And once again, I get it. It is unfortunate. King definitely is the more focal point character of the Cayenne duo. As delusional as I am, I ain't that delusional. But man, it's unfortunate that they keep slandering my boy King. Like, Diane didn't agree with this. Like, Diane didn't not fight back against this. Like, come on now. Like, your mom is still part of it too. I get it. I guess because if we're specifically talking about La Droga de Yor, right? Diane has no jurisdiction to give that out. That is purely a King decision, 100%. Even Diane talks about that with King. Like, the whole idea of, like, didn't you say we weren't going to give him that? Even though we knew he's our son? Like, that's very particular. I do get that, 100%. But outside of that, the whole situation, like Myrtle's feelings of inadequacy, I guess it is somewhat King, but it's also somewhat Diane. Diane has a part to play. I think she does get off a little bit scot-free. But once again, if you're going to focus it on somebody, focus it on the character who technically got more screen time and more importance in the original series and has more jurisdiction over the specific situation at hand with La Droga de Yor. So yeah, you would slap a hefty chunk of the blame on King here. But hey, at least leave my boy alone. It's the King Defender in me. I'll be completely honest. It is purely the King Defender in me that's like, hop off my boy. He didn't do nothing wrong, even though he definitely did things wrong. But with that being the case, we see King hit the thickness a little bit. He's like, oof, oh, nothing hurts more than your own family getting you, especially your own kids. Gosh darn it. How could you do this to me? Fine. Hang on a bit longer, Nazians. I'll heal you once things are settled here. Now, what do you mean by that, King? What do you mean by that? That's not... King can heal? I know he can use Pollen Garden to defend himself. And, like, Pollen Garden numbs all pain and starts a slow healing process, but King... What do you mean by that? What do you mean heal? You got the drop of life? You got the drop of life or something, buddy? Huh? What you mean? Because Gloxinia, out of all the fairy kings we've seen, out of all the fairies we've seen, now that I think about it, he's the only one to ever shown like a direct insta heal ability in the drop of life, but that was limited. So interesting. I wonder what King means here. I'll heal you once things are settled here. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Let me know. Let me know. That's got an eyebrow. That's got an eyebrow. What do you mean by that, good sir? Let me know. Let me know what you're talking about. You got to drop a life? Please. You do need better, like, instant regen healing. Like, that's one of the things that holds King back a lot. And, of course, Bond used to have this. But, like, unless you're using, like, a composite Bond with Korchu's post-purgatory pre-immortality laws, you kind of can't have it. But, like, King, you do need some better healing, buckle. That Pollen Guard's kind of whack. But let's see. Speaking of, let's see, we see that King drops Spirit Spear, Chassis Full, 8th Form Pollen Garden. So he is maintaining another Spirit Spear, and then we'll see him go to use another one. So he can still do the splitting thing. He just doesn't do it earlier. And one thing I do like about this interaction, though, is that King does definitely and definitively have faith in his kids. At least for SIXTUS, who is the second oldest. Thank you for the correction on that. He is the second oldest. He definitely just has faith. He's like, yeah, kid, you can handle it. I know you don't like it, but, like, you got that, bucko. Go ahead. Cook him up a little bit. Especially since he does make a good point here. If it truly is only his password that will access La Droga de Yor, and they can't just destroy the throne to go and get it, then yeah, SIXTUS actually would be the better send, because his voice wouldn't trigger it, even accidentally. If he's compelled to, I don't think it actually would, because SIXTUS isn't a king. He wields a spirit sword, not a spirit spear. So yeah, sending SIXTUS is smart on all levels, and it shows the level of faith that King has in his kids, which I think is sweet. Once again, my dad, at least as far as I know, he has faith in me, and that always is reassuring. And, like, you can even see SIXTUS is like he turns away to hide a little, he smiles a little bit as he jabs at his dad. He's like, okay, Pops, you trust me? Oh, like, I don't know. I still remember the first time my dad, like, he left me with a task, and I was like, yeah! To be fair, I was like 10 at the time. SIXTUS is probably like at least 17, maybe 16, or 15 at the youngest, probably. But still, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. And we see that King locks in. He begins to fly off, goes Super Saiyan a little bit. And SIXTUS also flies off, them hands not leaving his pockets. And Myrtle continues indubitably to keep on tweaking. The tweaking starts and it never stops, as he says, "Give me La Droga de Yor. Let me drink it right now." Once again, not actually Myrtle, it's Monster Myrtle, or whatever chaos juice inside of him. But still, I wonder what he thinks it would do. like, what if they did? What if they did though? You just gonna keep tweaking out, bro? What if King did just stop everything right here now? I was like, okay, here, have it. Drink it. See how nothing changed? And you're still ugly? Yeah, that's what I thought. But no. I do wonder. I do genuinely wonder what would happen. But this isn't real Myrtle. It's Monster Myrtle. And Monster Myrtle is ugly as all get out. And that whip arm goes absolutely crazy. He reminds me of... Who is that enemy I'm thinking of? There's an enemy from a video game that also has a whip arm. What? My brain cannot fathom. There's some enemy I'm thinking of that has a whip arm in a video game. If someone knows what I'm thinking of, I can't even name the series, which is so weird. They have a whip for an arm. I'm half tempted to look up characters with whip arms. But I can't, there's a specific character I'm thinking of that has a whip arm like this, but notably both of their arms are whips. I still can't place the series. I think maybe it's not a video game, maybe it's an anime or manga. Regardless, the whip arm is going absolutely crazy. And we see his own family is like, yow! They're a little bit blown back as he's wilding out. And we see that Myrtle's wilding out, but now he's wilding out in the direction of his family too, his real family, including his actual siblings and his mom, not Nasian. So once again, this isn't really Myrtle. His rage is very undirected. It's very misdirected, in fact. And obviously the malice is just being, if amplified, maybe, but like, it's not really Myrtle. It's mystic, magic, chaos, gaslight juice Myrtle, which is, once again, it's still less interesting, at least in my opinion. I love when characters can actually be held responsible for their actions and their thoughts, like characters are holding King responsible to his action, his thoughts, and his mistakes. But I don't know. I feel like Myrtle's just going to get off with a free pass here, even though he's genuinely wilding out. And we see that Zana and Zillion, they actually start cooking. As she says, "What the heck do you think you're doing to Mom? Don't make us do this, Myrtle." And well, Zana definitely does seem like the sibling who'd be more than willing to beat somebody up. Zillion, she says that, and then they proceed to jump the taste out of him with quad hammer. Like, golly, they start mollywopping, bro. Then with the me. But at the same time, yeah. Like, notably, like, if any of my cousins randomly decided, hey, yo, bro, I'm just gonna attack that mama with a pencil. Yeah. He'll be the one that wants to attack you for make, bucko. Not to talk if it was a sibling or something like that. So I understand them generally tweaking out. Even though, like, realistically, Diane's not gonna take any damage. Diane is way too, like, even with Myrtle destroying the second form Guardian, even base Diane, especially after an 18-year time skip, she's not in any danger. Y'all are in danger. But we see the quad hammer pops off, they knock Myrtle around a bit, and then Belt, the third eldest, I do believe, says, "Alright, okay, stop right there. Chill out a little bit." And he uses Bind Ivy. Notably, this pops up out. I'm not sure if this is meant to be Belt's spirit sword or a form of it, or just a part of the Fairy Realm decor, or if this is meant to be Belt's spirit sword, or if he even has one. Maybe this is just like a nature manipulation. Because once again, SIXTUS is the only one who's implied to actually have a spirit weapon up to this point. But I wouldn't be mad if this is another one, because this reminds me of Deaththorn from Gloxinia, except obviously, without like the deadly poison part. And we see that Belt goes on to say, "Listen, bro, why don't you just cool your head a bit and calm down? Let's talk about it. This is a scenario that can be solved with just words. If you start struggling, those vines are going to rip your body apart. And, hey, Pops may have the drop of life, but I ain't got the drop of nothing. Mom don't, so you better calm it down." I do like how Belt is the one who is not necessarily, I guess, kind of the facilitator of conversation, or at least he attempts to be here, because he's the third oldest. Of course, Diane is actually the oldest one there, and is the mother. But in this context, out of the remaining siblings, yeah, it would be Belt, who is the third child of King and Diane, who'd be like, "Hey, sisters, calm it down a little bit. Let's try and talk to Broski," and he would restrain him like this. And also, I do like the seriousness of Belt being like, "Dude, they will tear you apart. I promise. I am not holding back on you." But we see that Myrtle is once again in peak tweak mode, and he's tweaking so hard, his teeth are sweating. I know it's spit, but his teeth are sweating, and he goes, and he tears through everything, crushing the rock golems, tearing through the binds of ivy and everything. You do see, I think he takes a little bit of damage here, but clearly did not tear through his body. He is very, very powerful right now. And we see all the kids are like, "Whoa, he has gained to the moon. I did not expect this. Myrtle may just beat us up. And we see Diane finally decides to do a little bit of locking in. But before Diane ends up locking in, we get to see someone else get back up and prepare to lock in. Chiore says, now what? At this rate, Myrtle and all of us are in deep trouble. Once again, call me a Diane Glazer, I guess. Or a Diane Defender. Diane is fine. She is not in any trouble. Y'all are not in danger. Like, I know this sounds crazy. Maybe I'm just slopping Diane. But, like, Diane hasn't taken damage. She hasn't attacked. She hasn't tried anything. You are chilling. I guess the kids just wouldn't know, though. Like, I didn't know how strong my mom was until actively provoked. And even then, still don't think I know. Like, I never had any reason to see her true strength. Of course, she's not Queen of the Giants or anything, but, like, that mom with the pencil, I got my strength from somewhere. And while my dad is the source of it, the other is my mom. So, like, maybe that's it. You just don't know, and you're trying to play protective roles. But, like, come on now, y'all. Have a teeny tiny bit of faith in Diane. And we see that a certain someone rises up, saying, then it's up to us. Let's protect Myrtle and the others. I don't know how Nasian's plans to achieve this. Because, like, dude, when you were Ceranos amped, before he got Giga Swole, you were being knocked around. Are you sure you got this, though? Maybe because the Mullen pill is no longer in effect and Nasians can actively use toxins. Maybe he can cook. Maybe he can get some, like, paralysis? Why did I say it like that? Paralysis strats up. And maybe he can cook a little bit. I'm still not too sure entirely about it, though. But maybe he can cook now. But, like, stat-wise, clearly this Myrtle's, like, above harm from Nasians. I don't think any of Nasian's attacks are going to pierce this Myrtle unless he gets in, like, an already existing open wound. So I think it's going to have to be some gas or some sort of treatment like that in order to get active. However, speaking of getting active, Nasian is getting active. And naturally, Chiore asks, Nasi, what about your broken arm? Which is, admittedly, a very good question. That arm was, in fact, just shattered. But we see that Nasian admits, I know, but it got healed at some point. I kind of feel like it's something familiar. He doesn't say that, but at the same time, it's been 2 years. I was going to get on his case for being like, dude, how do you not... Like, I presume maybe all healing feels uniform, but I feel like you would know if, like, Percy mystically magically healed you. You've probably been waiting for that feeling for 2 whole years. But he passes it off. And Chiore, L baby sister, once again, I don't know, I'm not really liking Chiore. I think her magic's whack. I think her character's kind of whack. I think her design's kind of whack. Like, I mean, it's not a bad design at all. I think the hair color's pretty whack. Like, I don't know. I'm not really rocking with Chiore. Because we see, she says, oh, the work of that weird spirit just now? And Nasian's actually asks, huh? Spirit? What? But Chiore immediately shuts it down and is like, never mind. It might just be my imagination. But seriously, are you okay? Chiore. He's been trying to get some sort of response out of Percival for literally years at this point. And here's the thing. I was going to give her a pass. In the live reaction, I half near gave her a pass. Which you check it over on Patreon for us. Wonder Month. Become a member for us. $3 a month. Check out the live reaction. It's 28 minutes long. But regardless, I almost gave her a pass because, like, oh, well, maybe she doesn't know what Percy's magic looks like. It literally was shaped like Percy. She saw Percy when Nasi's first brought him there, before all that extra hair grew. Heck, Percy's base hairstyle is still visible in his longer hair state. You knew what that was. Chiore. I'll give her the slightest bit of a pass, because maybe it's just not the important thing right now. Maybe you want to focus on something else at this point. And obviously, the saving of Myrtle is a big thing that you want to take care of right now. Fine. But Chiore. Come on now. Really? You couldn't tell him? Like, you could not tell him, I think that may have been your friend. I mean, I guess maybe she's afraid to give him a false hope or something, but this weird spirit that seemed to have the same haircut as the friend you've been trying to revive for the past 2 years, yeah, it just magically showed up, sunk into you, and healed you. Does that sound familiar? She could have at least said something. But with that being the case, we see that Nasian's locks in, and Chiore is more worried about Nasian's health than actually helping. And we see that Myrtle is still actively tweaking out. Even if it's not Myrtle, it's Curdle, Chaos Myrtle. He says, I hate it all. And we see that Zana looks like she's about to genuinely crash on us. He says, okay, now I'm getting mad for real. So what were you? Fake mad? Are you going Matter Giant Fairy Hybrid 2? 3? 4? God? Matter Giant Fairy 4? God? God, whatever. But we see that Diane says, hold on. I'm tired of not doing anything. Step back, everyone. This is a job for Mom. Diane is about to log in. So, Diane's about to start cooking. I ain't knocking it. Pow, useless as ever. Absolute garbage. But with that being the case, Diane does look kind of weird here. I think it's legit just the thickness of her pigtails. It looks too thick. Something about this whole image seems slightly off to me. I don't know what it is, but this is implying we're going to get Diane v. Myrtle or Curdle. So, I'm excited. I'll take it. But we immediately cut away and see that Kilbegon's like, oh, would you look at that? The Grey Fairy King took the bait. Double casting, Dark Ghost Horde, and Trancer Enchant. And Kilbegon must think they're him. Is it? Are Kilbegon? He? What would Kilbegon's pronouns be? Because, like, are both heads sentient? Like, can they get into arguments? Can they disagree? I don't actually know. Like, how does that work when you have actual... Like, I know conjoined twins, they have, like, 2 separate consciousnesses. They're one person. Like, they share one body, but, like, they're 2 individuals. Of course, a lot of their universal experiences are the same because they literally can't separate from each other. But, like, they're just 2 people, but in one body. So, like, is that the case here? I'm not sure. So, I guess we'll call them them. But they must think they're them or something. Because they really hit this double casting Dark Ghost Horde and Tracer Enchant and say, die, Fairy King. Do you really think you're like that? Like, Kilbegon, I know you were at the meetings. I know you were at the conferences. What did Arthur explicitly tell all of you? Didn't you announce it? Well, no, maybe not. I may be conflating early series stuff. But Kilbegon, you should know you're not that guy. You should definitely know you're not that guy. The Fairy King? Really? You really think you're that Himothy, huh? That you're going to pull up in the Fairy King in his own realm and you're going to cook him? You're going to one-shot him? Kilbegon, you should have known better, bucko. And even King is like, Kilbegon, you should have known better, bucko. As King hits the, oh, wow, this surrounding Spear of Darkness seems awfully familiar. Oh, I remember a certain captain of mine using a much stronger variation of a similar attack. Oh well. Spirit Spear, Chastieful, first form, Chastieful. Mow down. And Chastieful pops out looking clean and buttery. Look at it. Second best Spirit Spear. I still like Basquiat's more. I'm sorry. But with that being the case, look at it. The only thing here, Nakaba, his wings, bro. His wings. But other than that, a gorgeous image. And I love the scale of it, too. Look at how big it is. Pause all of it. We are not talking about the size of King's spear. That's what Diane talks about. But with that being the case, that is like, I think this is the biggest we've seen the first form of the Spirit Spear. I know it's been big before. Like, if you go back to King's introduction to his full wing self, the Spirit Spear is in fact quite large. But like, scale wise, at least here, it doesn't even look like he's the size. He looks like about the same size as this. So this Spirit Spear is massive, gargantuan, and I love that. It goes to show the power and scale of the Sins now, which is why I hope Diane cooks a bit more. She gets a little bit devious against Curdle, even though that's her baby and probably doesn't want to get that devious. But we see Kilbegon's like, gosh darn it, I really thought it was him, only for me to get vaporized. But we see King say, really? Nice idea. But I've got this crazy powerful mage amongst my friends, you see. I outscale her drastically thanks to my feats on the Demon King and the Supreme Deity and her lack of feats. So she's light work. But you guys, I could handle you in my sleep. I hope that doesn't come back to haunt him, because that does seem like setup. Like, that does seem like complete setup. Like, they're gonna, like, King's gonna think he's got it, and then Kilbegon's gonna pull out like an Uno reverse card and like seal King or something. I hope that doesn't happen. But yeah, King realistically, like I've been saying this entire chapter, should be able to handle this entire situation on his own. Like, there's no real reason he shouldn't be able to. So I do like that he's playing into the fact, like, yeah, you invaded his realm on his turf. Well, he's fresh. Did you really think you stood a chance? But we see, as King handles Kilbegon all of Kilbagan's servants start wreaking havoc throughout the fairy realm, throwing out attacks, warding off all the giants and fairies away from the throne as they all approach. Once again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 to the previous 11, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so 9 seems to be the more consistent number. They all approach the throne, and they begin to hover. I detect a very strong, purified magical force. La Droga de Yor has to be here. Yes. And we see that a certain someone falls from the heavens, or floats down. Bingo! But you'll never get your hands on it. Want to know why? Because you got SIXTUS here, taking you on. So SIXTUS is about to cook. We're gonna get more of the Spirit Sword, which is looking like straight gas already. I'm excited. But you see what I mean when I said at the beginning of this review that this chapter, while isn't too crazy, is still gas, still really, really good. We get a bunch of, admittedly, like I said, somewhat compromised character work, since we know this isn't actually Myrtle, but the reactions from all of these characters in this chapter, from Diane to King to the siblings, they're all real. The only one who seems to have acknowledged that this isn't really Myrtle and it's more so Curdle is King and SIXTUS. They're the only ones who've shown the heart reading thing. Even Belt, who's more fairy than Giant. Sorry, my brain lagged right there. More fairy than Giant. Even Belt didn't really notice or understand the difference. And he even tries to talk to Myrtle like that's actually Myrtle. So I do think the character reactions there are good. Fantastic. Really, really nice. I do love the character interaction between King and his kids. Both the protection of Nasians here and especially the interaction and trust and faith he ends up having in SIXTUS. That's really, really sweet. And it shows that character dynamic. Once again, we do get some nice little soft scaling stuff here. We get to see Curdle destroy the Guardian, not just breaking free of its grip, but then immediately annihilating the entire thing. Of course, once again, I don't think this actually testifies to Myrtle's or Curdle's real strength. I don't think Curdle's suddenly like a top tier end of series thing or anything like that. I really don't. But regardless, that's still a really good feat for him. And seeing King's barriers hold up well is nice, and seeing the kids whip out their own techniques is nice. I didn't really think we were going to get to see Zana and Zillion and Belt use some of their abilities. I thought we were really just going to get SIXTUS and Tiore, but no, all the kids are going to show off. Now, the only one we really need to wait for to see anything from is Pao, who I highly doubt we will see from, because they're like the baby. But then again, Tiore has magic too, so it's entirely possible that we may even get to see Pao cook. And as much as I don't like Pao, I do want to see him cook. So this arc is giving us a whole bunch of different things, and once again, more scaling for Myrtle, and we're finally going to get to see Diane cook. And obviously, I do like, one thing I will admit that I do like, and I'm glad Nakaba didn't immediately dive into, we hinted at Percy. Percy did something, at least one of his life spirits did. But he himself did not return. And while I am a little bit mad at Tiore for not telling Nasians that it was a Percy spirit or a life spirit that looked like Percy, not the point right now. I'm glad Percy isn't back and going to come immediately solve this. That's really, really good. How Nasian's going to cook? I'm excited, but admittedly, shockingly enough, Nasian is my least favorite aspect of this chapter. I think he's the least important, but I think he's kind of dragged down by Tiore, or they're kind of dragged down by Tiore. And seeing Diane get to cook is going to be exciting. Seeing King get to cook more is going to be exciting. And seeing SIXTUS get to cook more is going to be especially exciting. So overall, a very, very, very W chapter. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave. Chapter's right, by the way. But please leave Prince of the Fairies in the comment section down below. Prince of the Fairies. Now, to thank you so much for watching, please do leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure that little notification bell so you not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month. You get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. Also, now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks will include the 28-minute live reaction to this very chapter, ad-free variations of all my videos, and if you become a $25 Patreon or $25 member, you can order whatever video you want. Also, if you want to make a one-time donation or a one-time request, the link to my Ko-Fi will also be in the description down below. Now, thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dago the Pencil, writing off. I would like to give a thank you to all $3 members: Recliner Plays, Greyhound, Atkins Void, Astro, Eternal Flame, Querencia Atala, Red Wolf 4765, G Prosper, and Paris Arnold. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $5 patrons: Steron, Sean, Midnight Lord 21, Marcus, Kevin, and Igneal. And I'd like to give a big old thank you to our $7 members: Autumn Mornings Lazo and Sick Addiction. And I'd like to give a big old thank you to our $10 member, Robbie Uchiha. And I'd like to give a gargantuan thank you to our $10 patrons, Panda Goat, Joaquin, and Idemokami. And I'd like to give a gargantuan scrumdiddlyumptious thank you to our $25 patron, ChinaDoll09, and I'd like to give another gargantuan gorgooglyunkus. I have no idea what that word. Thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.